we're diving into something that I've been thinking about while organizing that CD collection and wondering, why are my knees making that weird clicking sound? Faith in midlife, what no one's talking about. So here we are, fellow Gen Xers, the generation that's survived dial-up internet, Tang, and those weird plastic choker necklaces, now facing the ultimate plot twist, the midlife faith crisis. Remember when we thought adults had it all figured out? Yeah, that was hilarious. I've been thinking about this topic ever since I found my first gray hair in my nose. Like, seriously, nobody warns you about nose hair in your 40s. So many of us grew up with Nirvana and Nintendo, and now at this spiritual crossroads that nothing has prepared us for. We had these certainties about faith back when we were rocking a flannel shirt and Doc Martens. Then something shifts. Maybe it was that moment when your doctor started using the phrase, at your age, or watching your parents suddenly need your help and their phones and their medications, or perhaps it's seeing your kids become teenagers who roll their eyes at everything you say, just like you did to your parents. Whatever triggered it, here you are, wondering if Jesus is looking at your prayer life the same way that you look at that exercise bike that's now really a clothes hanger. That's exactly what I wanted to create in this episode. In all my years of talking with people who love both Jesus and 80s movies references, I've noticed how rarely we discuss the spiritual journey openly. There's almost this unwritten rule that faith should stay the same, unchanging throughout our life. But that's not what most of us actually experience, is it? So today, I'm inviting you into a conversation where nothing's off limits. Your doubts are welcome here. Your questions are valued here. Your journey, whether you're feeling like a spiritual superhero or more like that houseplant that you keep forgetting to water, is respected here. Before we dive deeper, I want to share a quick story from my own journey. A few years ago, after my mom got sick, I found myself sitting in hospital in the waiting rooms a lot. And I prayed all the right prayers, but honestly, I felt like God had kind of like put me on hold with that worst music ever. I kept showing up at church, Bible in hand, singing all the songs, but inside I was thinking, hello, is this thing on? That experience taught me that sometimes what feels like losing faith is actually faith growing up. Like when you realize that your favorite band from high school was actually kind of terrible, but you found deeper music to love instead. So let's begin this important conversation together. And don't worry, I promise fewer dad jokes in the next segment. No, I don't. I totally just lied. So midlife often brings us this identity crisis where everything we've known gets questioned. It's like when you realize your favorite jeans from college will never fit again, but way more existential. Perhaps you're wondering, is this really all there is to life? Because if so, I would have eaten more cake. Or why aren't my prayers being answered? Did God mute my notifications? Or is faith supposed to feel this uncertain? Or did I miss some kind of a software update? Have I done enough with the life I've been given? Or am I just binge watching my way through to eternity? These questions aren't a sign of failure. They're a sign of deeper growth. Like when your teenage kid suddenly develops critical thinking skills and you're both proud and terrified. Faith at midlife can often feel quiet, hidden, or strained. We experience losses, shifts in family dynamics, and dreams that don't materialize the way we expected. It's like ordering from the McDonald's menu and getting a sad, flat version of what was pictured. Let me share something that I heard from a listener named Margaret last month. She wrote, "I've been a Christian for 30 years. I've taught Sunday school, led Bible studies, and raised my children in church. But last year, when my husband was diagnosed with Parkinson's, something in me went numb. I still go through the motions, but I feel like that I'm pretending. No one at church knows this. I'd never dare say it out loud. Is something wrong with me?" Margaret's question hits home for many of us. That feeling of going through spiritual motions while internally thinking, am I the only one faking it till I make it here? Spoiler alert, you're not. This silence around our struggles often comes from fear. Fear of judgment, fear of looking spiritually wimpy, fear of disappointing others who sees us as examples. We've internalized this idea that mature faith means never doubting when perhaps the opposite is true. Consider some common but rarely discussed struggles many face in midlife. Spiritual dryness, when prayer feels like leaving voicemails that never got returned, realizing that Jesus is my boyfriend songs from youth group don't quite hit the same now. The feeling like being disconnected from church culture that seems designed for either 22-year-olds or 72-year-olds, but nothing in between. The tough experience of unanswered prayers, especially when praying for loved ones. Wrestling with faith questions that suddenly feel urgent rather than theoretical. Being sandwiched between caring for teenagers and aging parents, leaving your spiritual life about as nourished as a gas station sandwich, facing mortality in new ways that make you question what you truly believe. Nothing like a routine colonoscopy to spark the existential reflections. But here's the beauty within the struggle. Your faith becomes personal and authentic, free from the expectations or performances of your early years. There's something truly freeing about letting go of the need to appear certain and embracing honesty of the journey you're on. It's like admitting you've never read all of the purpose-driven life and somehow surviving anyways. I'm reminding that a wise spiritual teacher once told me, faith isn't about having all the answers. It's about trusting even when you don't. Kind of like parenting a teenager. You have no idea what you're doing, but you keep showing up anyway. Struggles teach resilience and compassion, deepening your empathy for others facing their battles. When we've walked through our own valleys of doubt, we become less judgmental of others' spiritual journeys. We learn to listen rather than lecture, to walk alongside rather than direct. We stop being the person who responds to every struggle with just pray more. Seriously, don't be that person. I recently talked with Dr. James Miller, who spent decades studying how faith changes across our lifetimes. He noticed that this midlife questioning often represents an important growth stage, not a spiritual failure, but a spiritual advancement. Moving from what he calls inherited faith to owned faith requires this period of questioning and often some discomfort. It's like the difference between knowing the lyrics to Amazing Grace and actually understanding why grace is so amazing. Remember these powerful truths. Faith is tested by silence. It grows stronger when it persists beyond unanswered prayers. The true power of faith is not revealed in moments of certainty, but discovered in how we handle uncertainty. Real faith isn't immune to doubt. It courageously coexists with it, like how I still eat Taco Bell occasionally, despite knowing better. You're not alone. Your struggles are the seeds of deeper, more authentic spirituality. And perhaps that's what midlife is truly about. Not clinging to certainties, but finding the courage to let faith evolve into something both stronger and more gentle than before. Hey, before I move into the next point, I'd like to share a thought from writer Anne Lamott, who said the opposite of faith is not doubt, but certainty. Maybe in midlife, we're finally learning the difference, that how to throw our backs out simply by sneezing wrong. We've been talking about the silent struggles of faith in midlife, those questions and doubts that we often keep to ourselves, like our secret love of a boy band and how many times that we've rewatched Friends. Now, I want to explore something equally important, how faith naturally evolves during this season of life. In midlife, faith undergoes a profound evolution from youthful clarity to mature wisdom, from emotional highs to enduring peace. It's like a dramatic conversion story and like a slow-cooked meal that actually tastes better than microwave faith. Think back to your faith in your 20s. For many of us, those years were characterized by certain qualities, passion and intensity, like your love for slap bracelets, black and white thinking, the spiritual equivalent of dial-up internet, seeking emotional experiences, like our dating lives back then. Focus on personal growth and growing out of those regrettable hairstyles. A sense of limitless possibility before we knew what a mortgage was. Those qualities served us well then. They gave us energy and direction. They helped us establish who we are and make important life choices. But midlife brings different needs, different questions, and naturally a different expression of faith. This isn't going backwards. It's moving forward. Just as an oak tree looks nothing like the acorn from which it grew, but it represents its fullest expression, midlife faith may look very different from its earlier form, while being exactly what it needs to become. Consider these important shifts. Faith transitions from energetic emotion to calm trust, less about immediate answers, more about long-term perspective. It's like moving from pop singles to appreciating entire albums, or realizing that the part of the party is the deep conversations you have with one friend after everyone else leaves. That's the best. We learn to embrace uncertainty, realizing that unanswered questions can be sacred spaces for growth. There is wisdom in becoming comfortable with, I don't know, as an honest and faithful response. I often think God appreciates our, I don't know, more than our, let me explain to you how the universe works, anyways. As I often remind myself, when answers are scarce, trust becomes abundant. Also, when your knees hurt from kneeling in prayer, it's totally fine to pray from a comfy chair. Faith becomes less about religious routines and more about embodying faith through actions of compassion, generosity, and understanding. Many find that their focus shifts from getting beliefs exactly right to loving well. The question changes from what exactly should I believe to how can I show love today? Less time policing other people's theology, more time being a decent human being. The need for constant spiritual highs gives way to appreciation for subtle, quiet moments of connection. Like a long married couple who no longer needs the constant drama to feel deeply connected, our relationship with God often becomes more subtle, but no less deep. Not every worship song needs to make you cry to be meaningful. Sometimes the most profound spiritual moments happen when you're washing dishes or sitting in traffic. Let me share the story that shows this. My friend Tom was always the guy with all the Christian bumper stickers and the t-shirts in his 30s. His faith was loud and proud. Then his daughter was diagnosed with a chronic illness, and suddenly all his easy answers just evaporated. He went through a period of intense doubt, what he now calls his wilderness years. Recently, he told me, I thought I was losing my faith, but actually, I was losing a faith that was too small. What I have now is quieter, but so much stronger. I don't need to announce it or prove it anymore. And weirdly, I think I love Jesus more now with fewer hashtags. I spoke with Sarah Johnson last month, who described her faith transition this way. My younger years, I needed God to be very specific things for me: provider, protector, answer giver. Now I'm more comfortable with God being a mystery and with there being questions I'll never have answers to. Strangely, this has made my faith stronger, not weaker. It's like I've stopped trying to fit God into my limited understanding, which is good because I can still program my thermostat correctly. Take some time to think about these questions. How has my faith changed? What beliefs have I outgrown? And what deeper truths have taken their place? Where have I found unexpected strength or insight? What spiritual resources sustain me now that I might? How do I see God's presence differently than before? Where do I encounter the sacred in daily life? What does meaningful spiritual practice look like for me today? Hint, it doesn't have to include getting up at 5 a.m. unless you want to. Remember this important truth. Mature faith isn't always loud and triumphant. Often it's quiet, resilient, and unwavering in storms. Much like Generation X itself, we weren't the loud generation, but we're still here, still figuring it out. Faith has weathered life's storms, become strong, patient, and wise. It's faith tested by fire and proven genuine. And since we've survived the fashion choices of the 80s and 90s, we know something about endurance. I believe one of the most beautiful aspects of this evolution is how it connects us more deeply to others. When our faith becomes less about being right and more about being transparent, we discover a new capacity for genuine connection across differences. The boundaries between us and them begin to blur, and we recognize God is big enough to include many approaches, many questions, many journeys. This doesn't mean abandoning core beliefs. Rather, it means holding them with an open hand rather than clenched fist. It means recognizing that truth is often complex, multi-sided, and revealed gradually through lived experience rather than intellectual agreement. It's the difference between the faith of our youth group days and the faith that helps us navigate job losses, healthcare scares, and watching our parents age. All right, we're going to move on to my final segment. But before I do, I'd like to invite you to reflect on your own faith journey. What parts remain constant? What has changed? And how might these changes be not a deviation from your path, but exactly the direction of your spiritual life? Think of it as a spiritual grow up, just with more gray hair involved. Okay, let's turn to something equally important, practical ways to nurture and regenerate faith during this transformative period, or as I like to call it, faith hacks for the spiritually tired. So how can you strengthen or rekindle your faith during this transformative period? Here's some practical guidance. Slowing down. Practice moments of intentional stillness, allowing space for quiet reflection and deeper listening. In our hyper-connected, constantly busy world, creating margins for your schedule isn't a luxury. It's a spiritual necessity. Also, let's be honest, our Gen X bodies need the rest. Try this. Set aside just 10 minutes each morning. Before checking your phone or your email, just sit in silence, perhaps with a candle lit or looking out a window. Don't force prayer or meditation. Simply be present and attentive to whatever comes up. No productivity goals, no spiritual achievements to unlock, just presence. Writer Barbara Brown Taylor asks this the practical of paying attention. She suggests the practice of paying attention is as simple as looking twice at people and things you might observe otherwise ignore. This kind of attentiveness becomes a form of prayer itself, and it doesn't require special yoga pants or uncomfortable positions that make your knees protest. Community connection. Engage with groups that embrace authentic, vulnerable conversations. Online forums, some church small groups, book clubs, or trusted friendships. You know, people who won't run away screaming when you admit that you have doubts. However, be selective about these communities. Not all religious groups welcome honest questions or doubts. Look for excuse me. Look for places where people speak thoughtfully rather than reactively, where different viewpoints are valued, and where vulnerability is met with compassion rather than quick fixes or cliches. You can spot these groups because they rarely use the phrase, God told me to tell you. Consider gathering a small group of friends in a similar life stages that you're in for regular conversations about meaningful questions. Create some ground rules that honor each person's journey without pressure to reach identical conclusions. I recommend including snacks because everything is better with snacks. I talked with Mark Henderson, who found himself increasingly disconnected from his church after a personal crisis. Rather than leaving faith altogether, he started a monthly dinner club with 4 other couples facing similar questions. We call ourselves the Doubters Dinner Club, he told me. It's become the most honest, spiritual community I've ever experienced. We don't try to solve each other's problems. We just create space where everyone's journey is respected. Plus, there's lasagna. Cultivate daily gratitude. Recognize the small daily blessings is a powerful practice to shift perspectives and open hearts. This isn't toxic positivity. It's training your brain to notice goodness even when life's hard. Researchers have found that practicing gratitude actually changes brain activity in lasting ways. It's not positive thinking. It's creating new pathways in the brain that helps us notice goodness even in difficult time. It's great news for those of us whose brains mostly notice aches and pains and embarrassing things we said clear back in 1997. Try keeping a gratitude journal or simply pause before meals to acknowledge 3 things that you're thankful for. Look especially for the ordinary gifts, clean water, a moment of connection, the changing seasons, rather than just dramatic blessings. As I like to say, gratitude opens doors that doubt tries to close. Also, gratitude doesn't require spiritual perfection, just paying attention. Embrace uncertainty as growth rather than resist uncertainty. See it as a space where growth happens. Remember how uncomfortable adolescence was? This is spiritual adolescence, and it's equally awkward, but equally necessary. Spiritual teacher Richard Rohr speaks of this as living in between space, the threshold between what was and what will be. These thresholds can be uncomfortable, but incredibly fruitful. The question changes from, how do I escape this uncertainty, to what might be emerging in me through this uncertainty. It's like when we all moved from cassette tapes to CDs to digital music. The transition was weird, but necessary. Remember, your doubts and questions are not obstacles, but stepping stones on your spiritual path. Jesus seemed pretty comfortable with people who had questions, so you're in good company. Develop new spiritual rhythms. Incorporate journaling, nature walks, creative expressions, meditation, or quiet contemplative prayer. Mix it up like you're making a list or making a playlist, not stuck on the same song. Many find that spiritual practices that worked for them in earlier years no longer connect in midlife. That's completely normal. Consider exploring some different practices. Slow, reflective reading of meaningful texts, Bible included, but don't limit yourself. Silent meditation on a word or phrase like peace or presence or even help. Walking meditation. Find spiritual connection through movement. Bonus counts as exercise. Artistic expression, allowing creativity to become prayer, not talent required. Service to others, discovering the divine through helping others. Often the fastest route back to faith. Author Sue Monk Kidd describes how her own midlife spiritual crisis led her to explore ancient contemplative practices that eventually transformed her faith. Sometimes, she writes, we need to recover lost practices rather than invent new ones. The ancient spiritual disciplines still work for modern doubters. Who knew? Reimagine sacred texts. Return to familiar religious texts with fresh eyes, perhaps through new translations or perspectives. Try reading the Bible like you've never seen it before, rather than assuming you already knew what it means. Many find the same scripture or spiritual writings that once seemed simple now reveal deeper layers of meaning. Rabbi Lawrence Kushner suggests, read the old texts as if they were written for you personally. Ask not, what does this mean, but what does this mean for now? Consider reading translations you haven't explored before, or learning how different translations have interpreted key texts. The goal isn't to throw away tradition, but to engage with it more deeply. This is why I believe faith is static. It requires fresh expressions to stay alive. Just like you wouldn't wear the same clothes from school, or maybe you do, no judgment. Sometimes your faith needs new clothes too. Embrace paradox. Learn to hold seemingly opposite truths together rather than feeling that you must resolve every tension. Life is full of both and situations, not just either or choices. Spiritual writer Henry, I think it's Nouwen, wrote extensively about embracing life's paradoxes: joy and sorrow, community and solitude, engagement and contemplation. Rather than seeing these as problems to solve, he recognized them as the very fabric of a rich spiritual life. Kind of like how we love our kids and sometimes want to ship them to Antarctica. Find companions for the journey. Seek out wise mentors who have navigated through their own life or own midlife transitions. Look for the people whose faith has weathered the storms, but hasn't grown bitter or rigid. Look for people whose faith has deep and nuance, listen more than they preach, who embrace questions rather than rushing to answers. These might be spiritual directors or authors, simply friends at a life stage ahead of yours. Bonus points if they can laugh at themselves. Reflect on these personal questions. What brings me closer to feeling spiritually alive? Who are the people that inspire and uplift my faith journey? What small steps can I start today to reconnect authentically with my spirituality? What practices help me feel most connected to something larger than myself? I'm going to close with this segment with a thought on patience. Spiritual renewal rarely happens overnight. If you're in a season of questioning or spiritual dryness, give yourself grace. These transitions often take time, sometimes months, even years. Trust that what feels like absence may actually be part of the transformation. As the poet Rainier Maria Rilke wrote, be patient toward all that is unsolved in your heart, and try to love the questions themselves. Live the questions now. Perhaps you will then gradually, without noticing it, live along some distance day into the answer. And remember that God, who loved you in your certainty, loves you equally in your questions. That doesn't change just because your spiritual landscape has. So as I close today's conversation, remember that this powerful truth still applies. Midlife faith isn't fading. It's flourishing quietly beneath the surface, strengthening roots deep within you. Like how Gen X quietly keeps things running while boomers and millennials argue with each other. Embrace this evolution as a beautiful, necessary part of your spiritual journey. You're not failing at faith. You're growing into a deeper, more resilient relationship with God that can withstand real life with all of its complications. If I could leave you with just a few thoughts to carry forward, trust the process. What feels like losing faith may actually be faith transforming into something more authentic and resilient. The caterpillar probably thinks it's dying too right before it becomes a butterfly. Be gentle with yourself. The spiritual journey isn't a straight line. It has seasons, cycles, deserts, and oases. Give yourself the same grace that you would offer to a good friend. Stay open to surprise. God often appears in unexpected places and through unexpected people, rarely with a neon sign, more often in a quiet moment when you least expect it. Remember that you're not alone. So many walk this path of midlife spiritual transformation, even if they rarely speak out of it, or if they rarely speak of it. We're right here with you, trying to figure it out too. Hey, thank you for trusting me with your time, vulnerability, and stories. I'd love to continue this conversation with you. Connect with me on Instagram at Brown's Life, or join me on Facebook at Will Brown's Life, or check any of the resources that we have out on our website at brownslife.com. Every week, we're going to share a new If this episode resonated with you, would you just take a second and share it with someone else who might need to hear it? Maybe need to hear that they're not alone. Sometimes the greatest gift that we can give each other is a simple reminder that we're all figuring this out together. Remember, faith in midlife isn't about losing something. It's about finding deeper meaning, stronger connections, and a richer spiritual fulfillment. Faith at midlife isn't fading. It's faith coming fully into its own, much like us. We're getting older, but we're getting better. Okay, we're getting older too, but you know what I mean. Until next time, keep journeying with courage, kindness, and faith that endures. See ya.